What's better than one post-game rant in a week? Why not two? Because now we know who the opponent is for the San Francisco 49ers. It is the Detroit Lions. David, I don't know if it's me, but will you check your settings and make sure that the mic and the headphones are plugged in correctly? I'm hearing myself. I'm getting a little reverb. So I'm going to mute you while you try to figure that out. All right. San Francisco 49ers are playing the Detroit Lions. That is the matchup at hand. We're going to talk about it. What gives us pause? What gives us room to be confident? How did the 49ers match up with the Detroit Lions? We're going to talk about it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports. We are giving you our take down to the last second. And as I said, it's a post-game show twice this week. Twice in 2 days, really. David, my guy, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Audio okay?
Audio, I think, is okay. Yeah. You guys let me know in the chat, but I think we're good.
Yeah, I think this is one of those I picked the Bucs to cover. I expected the Lions to win. The Bucs did not cover. I think the line was 6.5 today. Congratulations to the Lions. I've been probably harder than most on Dan Campbell. I think that I'm not a big rah guy. I like some people really like that stuff. So kudos to them, but he clearly has got guys around him that have turned that franchise around. And so I have to tip my hat to him, just because I don't always like the theatrics of, his persona. I think that it's, the Lions are the NFC Championship game. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think both of these teams today, you saw, despite Joe Barry's Packers defense and how much they've been ragged, neither of these teams' defenses scare the 49ers, but I would argue that the Lions offense is absolutely much more of a threat than Tampa's offense was. So here you have the 49ers beat the 5th seed Cowboys. Or Eagles. They beat the 2nd seed Cowboys. Eagles. They beat the Bucs. They've beat the Packers. They beat I'm missing a team here.
Rams.
The Rams. And now they got the Lions. So they're going to face every single team in the playoffs. And I think this is just the next step to number 6.
It's a really good point. I guess I didn't consider that they've played literally every NFC playoff team. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, some of it's regular season, but regardless, They beat them all. Yep. So you go through Detroit and you really beat them all. All right, let's talk about a matchup or two that you feel favors the San Francisco 49ers against the Detroit Lions. Now, I must say, I looked up early odds before this game finished, actually before it started. And if the 49ers were to play the Lions, they were about a 7-point favorite. Now, I'm sure these odds will shift a little bit based on this game and how things went, but roughly you're looking at about a touchdown favorite for the San Francisco 49ers, the home team, against Detroit. And it is confirmed they are the late game. We thought that last night, but it's been confirmed. 49ers are the late game NFC Championship. Give me a matchup or two that favors the 49ers versus the Lions.
They're linebackers. Alec Anzalone. I mean, look, both of these teams, the Bucs and the Lions, their linebacking core in coverage is horrendous. And this is the kind of thing, you see the meme with Kyle Shanahan with a microscope, and then you got they've got somebody some forlorn linebacker that's in magnified. I think the linebacking core. I also think that Cam Sutton is an aggressive corner. I think Cam Sutton is a good corner. I also think Cam Sutton is a gambler. I think their secondary likes to play with house money. They're very blitz happy. I really hope. I think Aaron Glenn will probably send some blitzes, obviously, next weekend. I don't think he'll be quite as blitz happy as he was today. I could be wrong, because I think when you're going up against Tampa, all due respect, you got Mike Evans, and you have a Chris Godwin, but Rachaad White is that threat in the backfield, not as much. Cade Otton is not George Kittle, but Rachaad White's not Christian McCaffrey. So look, if by all means, if Aaron Glenn wants to take Brian Branch out of the middle of the field, away from a target, I hope they do. And I think that the 49ers and I think Kyle Shanahan are going to look at those tendencies and be ready to exploit them. So yeah, I think that as stout as like Aiden Hutchinson can be and as tough as he can be to block, that defense in the linebacking core in the secondary is very exploitable.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I also don't think Glenn is a very good defensive coordinator at all. I think that he makes a lot of mistakes when it comes to adjusting on the fly. That the way that first half ended, where they were playing press, as a defensive coordinator, you can say, "Hey, get off. You don't have to play press on Mike Evans," which is the dumbest thing you could have done in that situation. And Evans just cooks him, gets downfield quick. They score the touchdown, tie it before half. It was really an unnecessary thing. I agree. The linebackers should be an easy matchup when you've got CMC. George Kittle should have a big game. That should be their main guy in offense. But then I also look at Jared Goff. And if the 49ers pass rush, listen, last night, not great. Didn't get home a lot. Didn't even get near love in a lot of situations. That can't happen again because Jared Goff can do some things if he feels comfortable. However, Jared Goff, when he's pressured, is a completely different player. He walks into sacks. I think he falls down too easily, doesn't even try to fight through sacks, and he makes a lot of mistakes. Jared Goff will give you opportunities to take the ball away if he is pressured. I love that matchup for the San Francisco 49ers. And this is a quarterback who in the past the 49ers have put pressure on and have made him make many, many mistakes. So that is something that I think the 49ers can exploit as well.
And I think that, you're spot on. I also think another matchup, you don't wish injury on. Frank Ragnow's beat up a little bit. Jonah Jackson is out. I think this is a situation where you're talking about getting pressure that maybe this is the game where we really, cave the pocket from the inside. And you hit the nail on the head last night. Jordan Love was not sacked a single time last night. I don't really know if, sometimes we see the quarterback roll outside of the pocket, like, oh, he was pressured. Sort of the design, the flow of the play. I don't consider that pressure just because, the quarterback decides to not just escape the pocket, but just move outside of the pocket. So yeah, he was barely touched last night, and that can't happen against Jared Goff. Also, Jared Goff is nowhere near as elusive as Jordan Love, so I don't think that's such an issue. But yeah, there's matchups though on the other side of the ball that make you a little concerned too.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about those. Let's get to the super chats real quick. Brother Bob coming through 4 times. He's got a lot to say. He says, "David, shall we do a shot live on camera for the NFC Championship game?" I think we might. I think that might happen at the NFC Championship. Brother Bob says, "Bad matchups. Any Lions wide receiver versus Ambry Thomas is scary." Agree. We're going to talk about some matchups that are tough. Another bad matchup: Hutchinson versus McGiveth. Really scary. And then he said Campbell versus Scared Kyle. This is interesting because I think that Kyle, obviously is a schemer and an offensive play caller, is incredible. Campbell doesn't call any plays, but as a motivator and somebody who has balls in big situations, you're not going to get him to be scared. You're talking about complete polar opposites as coaches. I think most people would prefer Shanahan, but you do have to give Campbell his credit because he is not afraid. And that happened again in this game. Not afraid. Went forward on a 4th down, was able to get a touchdown. That's something that the Detroit Lions will do. And that makes it hard. It's hard to defend a team that can go for it at any time, any part on the field, and have that extra down. And not only that, they'll do fake punts, they'll do everything. So really it makes it hard to any team in the NFL is hard to defend for 4 downs. It's just really hard to do. And this team, especially with a good offensive line, a quarterback when he's not pressured, will go through his reads, good wide receiver core, good running backs, good tight end. That can be a little bit of a scary proposition. So I see where you're coming from. It is an interesting contrast. NorCal, Danny Muzzy says, "I like Jared Goff because he's from the Bay Area, but he's going to feel pressure coming back home." Yeah, I mean, I also feel like the Lions are playing with house money a little bit at this point. Like now that they've made it this far, They won their 2 games at home. They haven't been this far in forever. Nothing to lose. It's like what we talked about with Green Bay, just nothing to lose. Mike Drops with Monza says, I may have called this matchup this offseason. Yeah, there's you and 2 more called this. I think Matt McEwen called it as well, and then there was someone else. So kudos to you guys that called this one. I don't think a lot of people agreed with that. Now, Brother Bob brought up some matchups that do concern him. Do you have any other matchups that might concern you in this head-to-head?
Yeah, I think that the run defense. I think that, look, last night was a masterclass in how not to play run defense. It's just, there are so many times, again, missed tackles. There were multiple times I went back and watched a little bit. Chase Young, I really want to like Chase Young. And Chase Young against the run he's in position to make plays. And there were a couple of times where he tried to do the linebacker like safety, like shoulder shiver, instead of just taking his big old, pythons and like wrapping them up. And like, it's so much of that. And I think that in a team like this, look, no David Montgomery. I love David Montgomery, former Iowa State Cyclone, just like Brock Purdy, right? He's not Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs scares me.
No.
The great thing about it, though, is that the Lions tend to forget that Jahmyr Gibbs exists. So look, if they want to go split, I'm not saying Montgomery's not a scrub. Look, let's just be correct. I'm not saying that about David Montgomery. But the way that Aaron Jones was able to wreak a little havoc last night, and the quality of offensive line that team has, this team, I look, Ben Johnson is relatively balanced as a play caller. I am not as concerned of the wide receiver matchups as other people are. I know Ambry Thomas had a clunker of a game. Amon St. Brown is a stud. Sam Laporta is a great young tight end. I'm very comfortable with our linebackers in coverage in those matchups. I really am. I'm comfortable with Demo Lenore right now and Mooney Ward right now and Tayshaun Gibbs. I'm comfortable with that. What I want to see is our front seven, our that defensive line, not get blown off of their assignments and be able to shed blocks and stem the tide with the run. And I think if they can do that, if they can really focus on how to stop the run, I think this will be. I like them. I like the matchups. I get Jameson Williams has speed. I get these guys. I know that we're kind of stung with Ambry Thomas and what he did last night. I still feel like in most situations, Ambry Thomas was in a couple situations last night where he did not need to commit the DPI. Matter of fact, though, he did. So, yeah, I'm more worried about the run game, and because I don't think the 49ers run defense it's been an issue for a little bit.
I agree with you. I think that there have been, you look at the totals and you say, all right, this run defense has been great. And it's funny because I do these behind enemy line shows every week. And it seems like every week when I talk about our run defense being a little bit suspect, the person that I'm talking to is surprised. They're like, well, I'm just looking at the totals. Like, this is the first time I'm hearing of this. The run defense, really? I didn't think we'd be able to run the ball. It's like, well, there's a few things that play into this. First of all, the 49ers are usually up big, so it takes teams out of the run game. Mm-hmm. And the 49ers at times, for whatever reason, have gotten lucky. Like Minnesota is a great example. Minnesota was running the ball all over the 49ers. But because Kirk Cousins was playing so good, they just stopped running the ball. But they could have ran the ball, even though they don't have great backs. They don't have the best offensive line. So at times, the 49ers have been susceptible to the run game. Now, it's interesting that no running back until last night for 51 games had gone over 100 yards as an individual player. But when I look at the Detroit Lions, I look at that offensive line, even if Jackson doesn't play, Montgomery and especially Gibbs, really, I think Gibbs should be getting a 70-30 split. And I think Montgomery's good, but Gibbs is just that much better. He's so explosive. He's such a difference maker. And he can do a lot of that CMC thing where if Goff is about to get hit, he's got the safety valve in Gibbs, who's always going to be there. And once he gets the ball in his hands, he's very explosive. We saw him take over this game, essentially. Yep. He was the reason that they won this game late. He started to take it over once they put him in and kept him in for back-to-back drives, essentially. Gibbs is a weapon. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a weapon. Laporta, you can tell, is not fully himself, but he's still available and is a guy that can beat you. This offense can put up points, and they can do it in bunches at times. So that is something that I'll be looking at as well. And I would say this defense, as great as the names are for the San Francisco 49ers, at times have been a bit underwhelming. Now, they've always gotten big stops when they needed them. Last night was a great example where Green Bay was driving and couldn't punch it in. But how long can you live on that edge? And if they allow Detroit to just drive, and now you've got a Detroit Lions team that's going to be aggressive and go for it on fourth down, can you stop a team like this consistently for 4 downs? I don't know. That's a question I have. So you might get yourself into a shootout. Now, flip side of that, we just talked about the 49ers should be able to put up plenty of points. We don't worry about Detroit Lions and their defense.
No.
However, do you want to be in a shootout? I don't know that that's ideal. So
yeah, I think that this is the thing. And I know people thought, I thought that the 49ers, people were like, why 49ers fans think it's going to be a blowout against the Packers? Well, a multiple score game is a blowout. I mean, the line was -10. It actually jumped up to -10.5. Okay. Before the game. So it's not dumb to think that the 49ers were going to win by multiple scores against the Packers. And also the weather came into play. There's lots of different things that went into play. Credit to the Packers. Look, this line is going to be around 7. And this defense, I guarantee you, of any defense in the playoffs. And look, the Packers, everybody on paper, like, right, the run game. But again, the rain, we still don't know. I'm sorry, I cannot gauge just because of how poorly Brock Purdy plays with a wet ball, like exactly what that would have looked like in normal conditions. But we know the weather. Yeah. There's 0% chance of precipitation, 0% chance. Okay. It's not going to be windy. It is going to be partly cloudy to sunny. It's going to be hot. It's going to be in the 60s the entire game, starting around like 68, 70, and on the field probably around 70. It's going to be beautiful.
That benefits both quarterbacks, though, because Goff outside is a different player, right? But with no elements, that helps him as well.
It does, but here's the thing about Goff, and it'll change it a little bit this year. Jared Goff last year on the road was one of the worst quarterbacks in turnover-worthy plays. The Lions are much, much better in the dome. They're much better at Ford Field. Now they changed a little bit of that fate here this year. But there are multiple games where I'm not saying that the 49ers can just rely on that like that's some magical benefit. But I will say this: I think Jared Goff has shown in his career that when the lights get pretty big, when it gets loud, and I'm telling you, Levi's is going to be rocking. And if there's some pressure, Jared Goff can show you why the Rams moved off of Jared Goff. And Kyle Shanahan knows exactly what that means. And so that's, to me, despite the weapons that are at play, I think what this game is going to boil down to is the 49ers will score points. The 49ers can run the ball against the Lions. They can pass the ball. They will score points. And whether this is a shootout, it's all about whether or not the Niners can maybe generate at least one turnover and get in Jared Goff's head. And I really believe that they're capable of doing that. Now, that doesn't mean that this isn't going to be a good game. We've seen what's happened with some of these games. I'm just saying the Niners know what's in front of them. The Niners know what's in front of them. They're not going to overlook the Lions, obviously, but they're going to be ready. And I think anytime you're going in an NFC Championship game at home, when you're facing a defense that's as porous as the Detroit Lions are, and are as matchup poor as the Detroit Lions defense is, you have to be confident in those situations.
Ooh, I just thought of another topic because
sure,
we'll get to it in a second, but I'm typing it out here because that got me thinking. There are some things that I'm excited about in this game, but before we get there, we'll go with Mike Drops. He says, Amon-Ra in the slot, offensive line versus defensive line on both sides. Their running backs versus our bad tackling, McKivitz versus Hutch. I do not like this matchup. Their O-line is better than Green Bay's. Yeah, this team is pretty good. They're good, but they're flawed. They're very, very flawed. So as good as they are, there's going to be some matchups that favor them, but there are many matchups that favor the 49ers as well. So Mike Drop says Ambry versus Williams, most troubling matchup. They just don't use him like that, but you're right. I mean, his speed, a straight line speed can be be interesting. Now, Ambry's quick himself.
He's not
fast
slow.
himself.
That's the thing. Ambry gets in situations where he just makes boneheaded decisions, even when he's good in coverage, or that he gets crabby. I mean, I don't mind getting a holding penalty every now and then if you're like, hey, I missed this. Okay, 10-yard penalty, I'll take it, right? 5, whatever. It's like illegal contact. But like the DPI stuff, like I don't know. I mean, he can clean that up. But to be quite honest, I'd rather have Ambry Thomas and Jamison Williams than, Isaiah Oliver, right? Or so let's just, So I'm not that worried. Jamison Williams, I don't even know if Jamison Williams had more than 2 targets today.
Yeah, no,
but he only needs one, right?
Reynolds, yeah, that's it. And Reynolds is pretty good too. They've got good receivers. They do. James says, don't want to hear no rah from this chat this week. This is going to be a battle, especially if Debo isn't there. Good point. If we played these Lions last night the way that we came out, we would have been out. Yeah, that's a possibility, man. And I agree. The one thing that we shouldn't do is puff out our chests because we saw how close that game was. And I don't think Green Bay's as complete as Detroit is. I think Detroit's a better team than Green Bay. I do. Brother Bob says nails. When is behind enemy lines? Same day and time. I'm trying to work that out right now. Hopefully it'll probably be Wednesday. I just don't know the time yet. So I'll let you guys know as soon as I know. Adam Paul says, Jesse and Dave, I'll be at the game. Nice. He says, hope to say what's up. This is the matchup that I wanted. Not the easier matchup, but the best potential game. Go Niners. I agree with you. And yes, 100% would love to say what's up to you at the game, brother. Mm-hmm. Cryptic says it's going to come down to the QBs. Goff threw some at the Bucs tonight, and they didn't capitalize the same way Green Bay didn't capitalize against Purdy. Lions will come in punching the Niners. The Niners have to punch harder. That is one thing that we are going to get. The Lions will be physical. They will match the 49ers physicality, and that'll be interesting. That'll be fun.
I think the big thing is, guys, shootout or not, the Niners have to score a touchdown. I know that sounds obvious, right?
Yeah.
It is. This team is going to score points, and what puts the pressure on the Detroit Lions and does make them a little bit different is you force them into situations where they're not able to settle for 3. And in those situations, I think that you're kind of funneling into a lot of other different plays that you're eliminating from the Lions repertoire. And I think that's something that's benefited the 49ers all year is getting to early leads, sustaining leads, distancing leads, and maintaining them. So yeah, I think that's fast start. You can't have a 7-6 game. That scares me, keeping it tight.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jesse Wade says, I love the adjustments made late in the game when we moved our linebackers up to the line. We made them think. I think that would be huge for us. Yeah, you could tell that was messing with Green Bay. And I tweeted out early in the game that Jared Goff and Jordan Love, that's a mix. Jordan Love was way too comfortable. And people were like, oh, he's not doing anything. It's not him. He's not the reason we're losing. I said, it has nothing to do with that. It's that I'm just saying he's too comfortable. And he was very comfortable in that game. But at the end, they started showing him things that he wasn't necessarily ready for, changing it up, and it made him very uncomfortable. And that was the difference in the game. Tommy says the Cowtricks should have won the game versus the Lions. You're talking about the Bucs? Because the Cowboys did beat the Lions. But it doesn't matter. Brother Bob says, James, rah, laugh out loud. Just joking. I'm nervous. Lions have speed. Yeah, they do. All right, here is the topic that I thought of, real groundbreaking, but we talked about matchups that are in favor of the 49ers. We talk about matchups that concern us for the 49ers. But what matchup are you looking most forward to? Any matchup you can think of that gets you excited in this game, whether it's a good one for the 49ers or a bad one, just one that you want to see.
I
got 2 of them.
Go ahead and you start off, Jesse.
Okay. Well, the first one is Debo has to play. But Debo and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I mean, these guys were going back and forth week 6 all over Twitter, back and forth for a whole week when both of them were injured. This matchup, I love it because both those guys genuinely do not like each other. I'm sure they respect each other, but they act as if they don't. And you know that if they are both playing, so hopefully Debo can, that's a matchup that they both want. So that's one that I absolutely look forward to for sure.
Yeah,
And then
Chauncey
the other
Gardner
one,
Johnson.
yeah,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was
No,
gonna
no,
say
go ahead.
Chauncey Gardner Johnson. He had a pick tonight off of. Hits Mike Evans in the hands. Whether or not he should have caught it, and then there were literally 4 guys in a prevent on a 3rd and 20 waiting for the pick that was deflected up. It wasn't like even Johnny on the spot. It was just, it's just fortuitous, right? It's Chauncey Gardner Johnson proceeded to have his lunch taken a lot throughout the rest of this game. I'm not worried about Chauncey Gardner Johnson, but yes, I am excited to see. I want to see the trash talk. I want to see Debo. I want to see Jennings getting his head a little bit. I want to see him getting there, like starting to get him John. That's fun. I think go ahead with your other one while I'm thinking.
I was just gonna say Ben Johnson versus Steve Wilkes. I mean, that's going to be a fun back and forth right there. I think they're both good coaches, but I also think as good as Ben Johnson has been, he's had some lapses this year where I'm like, what are you doing? And there are times that Wilkes, same thing. It's like, bro, what are you doing? So I'm curious to see which one of them has those moments, those brain fart moments that kind of breaks the game one way or another. But when they're both at their best, that's a fun matchup for me because I think that can be a good little chess match.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say before it's less now because Laporta is a little bit compromised, but I really want to see Fred Warner in that situation with Sam Laporta. I really think that Amon St. Brown is a stud, but he's typically used over the middle of the field a little bit more. I think that Demo, I'd like to see him, sliding in. I think that Demo is really good matchup for Amon-Ra, and I'm looking forward to that as well. I think Demo has taken his game to another level. It's not just he's kind of imposing his will. He's really, I would say, it's not even a persona. It's just his style of play, and the toughness sounds, general, but I mean, his toughness has just popped off the screen. And it's really become, I think, part of his calling card and who he is and what message he's trying to send. He's been aggressive. He's been physical at the line of scrimmage. He's been a vicious hitter, and he's been clamps and a lot of them in coverage. Like last night, he what was it? I think he allowed 4 catches for 13 yards. I don't know what exactly it was. I
don't know, but he was a tone setter, man.
Right. And so to me, that's that Demo with Amon-Ra and Fred on Sam Laporta. But really the biggest matchup I want to see, and I love that what you said with Debo Carter Johnson. I want to see as I alluded to at the beginning of the show, and people are going to say I'm drinking the haterade. I'm the mystique of Dan Campbell. I want.
It's so funny because you and Rich Madrid just hate Campbell, and I'm on the opposite side. Like I really have kind of caped for him in the past when with some of his decisions and whatever. But it's funny.
I think that Dan Campbell, kudos to Dan Campbell because they have guys around him. I think that once Ben Johnson leaves, that this is closer to a Nick Sirianni situation than most people realize. And I'm not saying Dan is on Nick Sirianni's level of being an a-hole at all. But forgive me if I don't get super excited about eating kneecaps. And so my thing is I think Kyle has seen this too. Kyle has an ego the size of, the universe. So Kyle's going to, I think Kyle's going to make this a little bit of a project of his. I think that this is a game I really feel strongly. They got through the grimy game, right? We've talked about they needed that situation to finally get a fourth quarter comeback in the elements, whatever. This game, the Super Bowl is going to be this game. You have 2 weeks to prepare afterwards for the Super Bowl. I think this is a Kyle Shanahan statement game. I think this is where you got an up-and-comer and Ben Johnson on the other side. I think Kyle says, no, remember me. And I think he's going to have those linebackers in a blender. And I think Chauncey Gardner Johnson's going to be having a little Nick Sirianni tear going down his cheek. And I know people don't want me to talk rah-rah, but you know what? What else are we going to do? I say, go crawl into my shell? Look, I think the Lions are going to put up a fight, but the 49ers should be able to push this defense around. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. Detroit can score some points, but I trust this defense not to completely fall apart. I know I'm concerned about the run defense, but I am not concerned about this offense matriculating the ball methodically down the field throughout. It can be shots, it can be first downs, on second and third and shorts, whatever. This team is going to be able to have their way. It's just going to be a matter, can you not turn over the ball, and can you make some stops on defense? You don't even need turnovers. Just force Detroit to punt 3 times, game's over.
I like that. Matt says, that's right. I got one right. 49ers versus Lions. Yeah, you did. You were on it preseason as well. Christopher says, still took a 53-yard run to go over 100 for AJ. It did. But he also was running very well all game. I mean, it's not as if they were containing him. There was many times where he was breaking way more than what he should have. He ran very well yesterday.
Well, 53 yards is still a big play. And the other plays were like, look, the Niners only gave
that 53-yarder. That's when we pretty much were like that. All game, I was confident. I was like, "Hey, we got this. We got this." And as soon as that 53-yarder broke, I'm like, "That's it. That's it. It's over." Like that was for me where I finally broke and was like, "Man, the 49ers aren't going to win this game."
Brother Bob, weren't you watching the show last night?
Yeah. That's what he's saying. He's being sarcastic. He's being very sarcastic. With
I got a Purdy jersey, and I'm not drinking old fashions. Man, my wife loaded that stuff up last night. Man, I was up late because it was so exciting, and I went to bed, and I didn't eat enough, and I'm so tired today. But I'm drinking my water with my electrolytes, my liquid IV in here.
There you go. Nice. Jamero says, Jesse, do you think Armstead is at 80%? He looked like he's not back yet. I don't want to speculate at where he's at health-wise, but what I will say is it took all of one drive for him to look very gassed. He's not in football shape at the very least. Even whether he's healthy or not, I don't want to speculate, but he's certainly not in football shape, and that's to be expected. I mean, he's missed a lot of time. So, all right. I know that we're a week away. I'm not going to hold you to this, but early prediction. Give me your score prediction on this one. What's your early
daddy? I'm going to say, I'm going to go, I'm going to go 34-20, 49ers.
34-20, okay. So I had the 49ers winning 34-24 last night. Clearly that didn't happen. Way closer than it needed to be. I'm gonna good weather, bad Lions defense. I'm gonna go 30-23 Niners.
Okay.
30-23. We'll see. I reserve the right to change it. We'll see who's healthy and who's not throughout the rest of the week. But for now, that's what I'm gonna go with. 30-23 49ers. David and I will be there. David, listen, thanks for joining me for a quick one. I just wanted to get our thoughts out there with this matchup, being that it just happened, but we got a hell of a game to watch, and the rest of you should be excited about that game as well. Chiefs versus Bills. Doesn't get much better than that with two elite quarterbacks. Let's see who gets to play in the AFC Championship for a chance to play, hopefully, your San Francisco 49ers in Las Vegas in just a couple weeks. Much love, y'all. Be back soon. Peace.